No one in the neighborhood understood why the lights in the old Harlow house never stayed on for long. They would flicker always once, then twice before dying completely, even after the city replaced the transformer 3 times. Neighbors joked that the place rejected electricity the way a body rejects a foreign organ. But for Daniel and Marissa Quinn, who moved in that quiet September evening, the strange behavior of the lights was the first sign that something inside the house still refused to let go. Within the first minute of entering the foyer, Daniel noticed the air felt colder than outside, not in a dramatic or supernatural way, but like they had walked into a space that had been closed for decades. The realtor had already left. The keys were still warm from her hand. The house, iconic, infamous, whispered about, was now completely theirs, and absolutely silent. As Marissa stepped onto the creaking staircase, her phone buzzed with a message from their new next-door neighbor, Mrs. Adler, a retired librarian who had lived on the street for 40 years. "If you're inside already, try not to close the upstairs bathroom door fully. It sticks. Bad memories in there." The message was odd. Not hostile. Not joking. Just strangely careful. Daniel raised an eyebrow, but Marissa shrugged. "Maybe someone got locked in there once," she said. But Mrs. Adler's phrasing lingered in Daniel's mind. Bad memories in there. It sounded less like a warning about the door, and more like a warning about something else entirely. They continued walking through the dim hallway when Daniel's phone vibrated with a follow-up message. "I'm serious. It's the room where she died. People say it doesn't like to stay shut." He didn't need a name. Everyone in that neighborhood knew whose house this had been. Jean Harlow, the platinum blonde legend whose tragic end had left a stain on Hollywood folklore. But Daniel had read enough to know she didn't die in this house. The official records said she died in a hospital. Marissa stopped, confused, reading over his shoulder. "Why would she say that?" she whispered. Before Daniel could answer, something happened, small, subtle, believable. The upstairs bathroom door, visible at the end of the hallway, slowly eased open by itself. Not slammed, not flung wide, just gently drifted open, as if someone had pushed it with a fingertip. The house sighed with an old wooden groan, and a faint echo carried down the hall, like the soft scrape of fabric moving across tile. Daniel inhaled sharply, trying to rationalize it. Old hinges, uneven flooring, pressure difference. Houses settle. Air moves. Doors open. But the timing, it had happened 4 seconds after Mrs. Adler's message. And that, more than anything else, made both of them stop breathing. The hallway was cold. Still. Listening. Daniel forced a laugh that didn't sound like him at all. "It's nothing," he said. "Old houses, just." Above them, a sudden click echoed. The bathroom light turned itself on. Daniel stood frozen at the bottom of the staircase, his hand halfway raised toward the railing, while the soft glow from the upstairs bathroom spilled into the hallway like a pale, artificial moon. The house had been dark moments before dead, almost, yet now that single light shone with a quiet insistence, as if calling attention to itself. Marissa felt her skin tighten along her arms. The brightness looked wrong, too sharp against the aged wallpaper, too deliberate for something that was supposed to be accidental. "Maybe the switch is loose," Daniel murmured, though he couldn't explain why it would flip on just after that text message. Still, they were adults, rational people, and moving into this house had already pushed them beyond their comfort zone. They couldn't start imagining things within the first hour. But the silence that followed felt heavy, the kind that made you instinctively lower your voice, as though the house itself was listening. Marissa finally took a step toward the stairs, breathing in the strange scent that lingered in the air, something faintly metallic, mixed with the powdery smell of old makeup forgotten in a drawer. She didn't mention it. It seemed ridiculous to say out loud, especially in a place so tied to a woman known for her beauty. They had read about the history, the years of glamour, the whispers of suffering, the quiet tragedies that unfolded inside these walls. But they had assumed, like most people, that history stays in the past. When they reached the top of the staircase, the feeling shifted. The air was colder, not like air conditioning, but like stepping into a basement after a long winter. The floorboards creaked with a tired, uneven rhythm. Each sound seemed spaced in a way that felt almost paced, as though someone was walking just a little ahead of them, keeping the same speed but always out of sight. The bathroom door stood half open, the light shining too brightly through the narrow gap. Daniel hesitated before touching it. Something in him disliked the idea of closing it, even slightly, after Mrs. Adler's warning. So he pushed it open instead. The hinges gave a soft, weary complaint as if disturbed from a long sleep. Inside, everything was ordinary old tiles. A cracked countertop, a faded mirror with traces of silver peeling behind the glass. But the light switch was firmly in the on position. Daniel flicked it off. The faint buzz died with the bulb. For a moment, the darkness was calming, normal. Then, from somewhere in the wall behind the mirror, there came a soft, unmistakable sound. A single drip, then another. Slow. Waited. Too deliberate to ignore. But when he ran the faucet to check the pipes, the water pressure came out smooth, normal. No leaks under the sink. Nothing on the floor. And when he put his hand against the wall, he felt a mild vibration almost like water moving through old pipes, but the rhythm wasn't consistent with plumbing. It felt irregular, almost like something tapping gently from the other side. Marissa, meanwhile, stared at the mirror, not at her reflection, but at the thin vertical line in the silvering behind the glass. It looked almost like someone had scratched it from the inside years ago, a single shallow mark that caught the faintest glimmer of light. When she leaned closer, she noticed something unsettling. The scratch ended abruptly near the bottom corner, as though whoever made it had stopped midway. Not broken off, just stopped. "You hear that?" Daniel asked softly. She nodded. The tapping continued, faint but rhythmic, like someone thinking absently drumming their fingers behind the wall. They left the bathroom door open when they stepped back. Neither of them commented on the instinct that guided that decision. Downstairs, the house felt different, warmer, but not safer. They opened the windows, letting in the late afternoon air, and tried to distract themselves by unpacking. But the unease hung between them like a thin veil. At one point, Daniel found himself glancing toward the stairs again. The bathroom light was still off. The door still open. Everything seemed untouched. Then, maybe an hour later, as they set a small lamp on the living room table, it flickered one flash, too, exactly like the house lights had done when they first arrived. The bulb steadied, but Daniel felt the hairs on his neck rise. "It's this place," he whispered, barely audible. "It's like it keeps reacting to us." Marissa didn't answer. She was watching the living room window, or rather, the faint reflection in it. There, in the dim glass, she thought she saw something move behind her, just a shift of white, like fabric brushing quickly past. But when she turned, nothing was there. Only the stairs. Only the silence. Only the sense of someone having just left the room. She didn't tell Daniel. Not yet. Because in that moment, she wasn't sure what frightened her more. The possibility that she had imagined it, or the possibility that she hadn't. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. For the rest of that evening, the house behaved with a strange kind of restraint, as though observing the new owners rather than revealing itself fully. The quiet stretched on, interrupted only by the usual settling sounds, timber expanding, pipes cooling, but even those normal noises seemed amplified, like they were happening in a large, hollow chest rather than a home. Marissa moved slowly through the living room, brushing dust from the mantel as the last remnants of daylight seeped in through the open windows. The room had that particular stillness of an old Hollywood house, an unsettling mix of glamour and decay. The faint scent of old perfume lingered again, but this time she recognized something powdery, floral, nearly forgotten. It struck her as strange because they hadn't unpacked anything scented yet, and the breeze outside carried only the clean smell of warm pavement and cut grass. Daniel was in the kitchen, flipping through papers the realtor had given them: inspection notes, utility information, a short history of renovations. He read each page slowly, not out of interest but because he was stalling. Something in him resisted going upstairs again. He'd felt watched the moment they set foot on the landing earlier, and he couldn't shake the subtle impression of a presence, not a figure, not a ghost, but the sensation of being assessed. He lingered over a page titled Previous Owner Comments, where someone had scribbled a short note in small handwriting. Bathroom door sticks, probably swelling in the frame. But the words were crossed out. Underneath, someone else had written, "No structural cause found." He stared at that for a long moment. By nightfall, the windows glowed with the soft blue tint of the evening sky. Marissa switched on the small lamp beside the couch, and its warm light settled comfortably over the room. The calmness should have soothed them, but instead it highlighted the strange stillness upstairs. A stillness that felt tightly coiled, waiting. Around 10, Marissa stood, stretching her stiff limbs. "I think I should take a shower," she said, but even to her own ears, her voice sounded unwilling. She glanced toward the dark outline of the staircase. The bathroom was on the right at the top, visible from the landing. A narrow beam of moonlight cut across the floorboards, making the space look narrower, more confined. "I'll go with you," Daniel said, too quickly. She didn't argue. When they reached the top of the stairs, the temperature dropped again, not dramatically, but undeniably. The air felt compressed, as if holding some faint vibration. Marissa stepped into the bathroom first, turning on the light. It flickered once, just once, but long enough for both of them to notice. Daniel opened the cabinet beneath the sink to check for foundation cracks or water damage, trying to rationalize the tapping they'd heard earlier. But everything was dry, intact, ordinary. Marissa reached for the shower handle, then stopped. At the very edge of her hearing, there was a faint, irregular tapping again. Not steady, not rhythmic, almost exploratory, like someone testing different spots inside the wall with their fingertip. Daniel heard it too. He straightened slowly. "Could be loose plumbing," he whispered. Except it came from behind the mirror, not the pipes. Marissa felt something shift inside her chest, an instinctive tightening, like an animal recognizing a larger presence nearby. She reached out and very lightly touched the mirror's edge. Her fingertips brushed the cool surface, and she felt a faint, distinct vibration like a pulse traveling through glass. She pulled her hand away quickly. "Let's shower downstairs," Daniel said. They had a small second bathroom off the laundry room. New tile, new plumbing, no history. Neither of them said what they were thinking. That the upstairs bathroom felt wrong in a way that logic struggled to frame. Before leaving, Daniel reached to turn off the bathroom light. As he pressed the switch, a delicate, dry sound whispered across the tile behind them like fabric brushing past a doorway. He froze. Slowly, he looked at the mirror. The scratch Marissa had been studying earlier, the thin vertical line, seemed longer now. Not dramatically, but enough for him to second-guess his memory. He stared at it, leaning closer, tracing the start and end of the line. It was faint, yes, but now it seemed to curve slightly, like the beginning of a letter. But which letter? Why would it look so deliberate? He stepped back carefully. "Maris?" he whispered, not taking his eyes off the mirror. "Did that scratch look straight earlier?" She hesitated. "I thought so." They both stared at it, neither wanting to confirm the impossibility of what they suspected. Downstairs, they closed the bathroom door behind them while showering, though neither acknowledged their unease. The sound of running water filled the house with warmth and normalcy. For a few minutes, the tension eased. Then, mid-shower, something lightly shifted overhead, an almost imperceptible creak of weight moving from one floorboard to another, just above where they stood. A soft, slow step, then another. Daniel killed the water instantly. Silence pressed in around them. He wrapped a towel around himself and stepped into the hallway, listening, marshaling logic, reason, anything to make sense of the sound. Old houses creak, he reminded himself. Temperature changes. Settling after years of vacancy. But settling noises don't walk. They moved only after the ceiling returned to complete stillness. Later that night, unable to sleep, Marissa sat in the living room with a blanket draped over her shoulders. She stared at the dark outline of the stairs, lit only by the faint streetlight outside. She didn't know what she expected to happen, maybe nothing, maybe something small. But after a long, steady minute, the upstairs bathroom light flicked on again. No sound, no footsteps, no movement, just a sudden, stark glow spreading across the upper landing like a silent declaration. This time, Daniel didn't try to explain it. He just whispered, "It's her room. Whatever happened here, it never settled." Marissa swallowed hard, her voice barely audible. "And I don't think it wants us closing that door." The next morning arrived slowly, with a pale, filtered sunlight that crept across the living room floor as if reluctant to enter. Neither Daniel nor Marissa had slept. They both dozed in and out on the couch, never daring to go upstairs. Every time they closed their eyes, the faint glow of the upstairs bathroom lingered in their minds. Every creak from the ceiling felt intentional. Every silence felt full. By late morning, exhaustion pushed them into a fragile calm. Marissa made coffee while Daniel paced the living room with his phone in hand, rereading Mrs. Adler's messages. None of it made sense. If the neighbors knew something, why hadn't the realtor said anything? Why was the bathroom specifically the center of everything? He stepped onto the porch and found Mrs. Adler sweeping her walkway, wearing an expression that hovered between sympathy and concern. Her eyes softened when she saw him. "You heard it, didn't you?" she asked quietly. Daniel stiffened. "Heard what?" She gave a small, sad smile. "The house never stays quiet the first night." He swallowed. Was it her? Jean Harlow. The older woman hesitated, then shook her head. "Not exactly. People always think it's her. But she wasn't the only one who suffered there." She lowered her voice. "Her husband, Paul Byrne, he died in that house. In that bathroom." Daniel froze. "They say he left a note," she continued. "They say the studio covered things up. Secrets, shame, quiet tragedies. Houses hold onto that." Her eyes drifted toward the open front door. "Especially that room upstairs. No one keeps the door closed for long." He returned inside slowly, feeling the weight of new knowledge settling into the house like a colder kind of air. When he told Marissa, she didn't speak for a long time. She simply looked at the staircase with a steady, quiet understanding. "It makes sense," she finally whispered. "The tapping, the mirror, the way the light keeps turning on." "Residual memory?" he suggested. He hated the word haunting. Felt cheap, sensational, something this situation was not. Everything that had happened felt restrained, almost mournful, not threatening. Marissa nodded. Something unfinished. For hours they debated what to do. Leave? Stay? Try to understand whatever was happening? They were exhausted, frayed, and yet neither of them felt true fear, only an unsettling, sympathetic sadness for something trapped between history and silence. By late afternoon, they decided to go upstairs together, not with bravado but with the respectful, calm demeanor one uses when entering a room that holds old grief. They climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking beneath their feet. The bathroom light was on again. This time, Daniel didn't hesitate. He walked straight to the switch and turned it off. The soft click echoed like a punctuation mark in a long, unfinished sentence. The room fell silent. Marissa stepped toward the mirror. The scratch, the faint line, looked different again. Not longer, not deeper, but unmistakably shaped. A curve at the top. A sharp downward stroke. A faint suggestion of a second line crossing near the center. A letter. She reached out and touched the cool glass gently, not with fear but with a strange, empathetic recognition. "Paul," she whispered. The air shifted. Nothing dramatic, just a subtle settling, like a weight lifting from the room. The tapping behind the wall stopped entirely. The faint vibration faded. Even the coldness that had lingered for days seemed to thaw, replaced by the slow warmth of an aging house waking from a long, uncomfortable sleep. Daniel felt it too. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. For the first time since moving in, the bathroom felt empty, not abandoned, not watched, simply empty. As they stepped back into the hallway, the door remained open behind them. No strange movement followed. No light flickered. No creaks announced invisible footsteps. The upstairs landing finally felt like part of a home, not a stage holding on to the last echo of a tragedy. That night, they slept in their bedroom, properly, deeply, without interruption. In the early hours of dawn, a single sound stirred Marissa, a quiet, almost affectionate sigh of wood settling. She opened her eyes slightly, expecting dread. But instead, she felt a calming presence, like the tail end of a storm drifting out to sea. She turned to Daniel. He was already awake, looking at her. "You felt it too," he murmured. She nodded. The house didn't feel haunted anymore, felt relieved. In the days that followed, nothing strange happened. No flickering lights, no shifting scratches, no footsteps in the ceiling. The mirror remained unchanged. The bathroom stayed warm, silent, ordinary. They never closed the door completely, not out of fear, but out of respect for the life that had once ended there and the grief that had lingered too long. Sometimes, when they passed the room, they felt a soft breeze on their arms, like someone brushing past politely. Not haunting, not frightening, just leaving. And for the first time since the house's infamous past, it finally felt like it had let go. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.